What do you think is the biggest mistake people make in relationships? Story 1. Not talking up front when there's an issue. No silence, no punishment, no confrontation, no mind games, no lies. Just accept that you have to put your ego aside and talk like adults. Accept to change if you were in the wrong and stop the relationship if the other is in the wrong and toxic for you. A lot of people stay in unhealthy, insulting, and violent relationships because it's the only thing they really know or because they fear what would replace it. I personally have accepted having basic expectations and being alone if no one meets them. I might end up alone, but I never want to end up in a toxic couple again. No matter your age or gender, an insult is never okay. Belittling is never okay. Mocking is never okay. Gaslighting is never okay. Lies are never okay. Having a partner who pretends to hear you but just says, and doesn't make you feel heard is not okay. If anyone does it to you, you deserve better. Remember, in relationships, silence is only golden when it's a comfortable pause during Netflix and chill. Otherwise, it's like buffering forever on the relationship channel. Story 2. I think it's a combination of getting so comfortable with somebody that you take things for granted. Stop doing the little things and stop communicating. I've been feeling this recently. My girlfriend and I moved in together nearly 2 years ago, and our relationship improved so much when we did, but it has led to me taking things for granted. I'm traveling at the moment, and I haven't seen her in nearly a month, and I'm really missing just existing together. Even something as simple as sleeping next to each other makes me miss it like crazy, but it's not something I think of as much when we're both at home. Story 3. Waiting until you're too far in to discuss marriage and kids. That's an issue that needs to be hammered out before you completely shut yourself off from anyone else. I feel like this is something that a lot of people miss. It's different if you're just casually dating, but if you want to be in a long-term relationship with someone, then kids and marriage are such big things. If one person wants kids but the other doesn't, then the relationship is doomed to fail in the long run. I have a friend who moved across the world with a man who she now depends on fully financially, only to learn that he doesn't want kids in the near future or possibly any time. She really wants kids someday and is in her late 30s. My mind was boggled as to how she didn't know this about him before moving. Story 4. So many people jump straight to lack of communication, but more often than not, the problem is refusing to accept what your partner is communicating. Communication skills can always be better, but a lack of understanding or willingness to compromise around the differences in each other's needs leads to resentment really quickly. Once you resent each other, it's game over. There's no real way to come back from that. The amount of times I've communicated with a partner about what is hurting me in the relationship, and I have to do it over and over again, and they agree with me that they need to do XYZ to fix things, then nothing ever changes. Or to tell them that you're hurt and then having them not care about hurting you, it makes you think that it's not the communication that's the issue. It's the fact that they don't care about what is being communicated. Communication in a relationship is like Wi-Fi. When it works, life is beautiful, but when it's down, you'd be stuck in a buffering state of, I said this, you heard that. Story 5. Your partner is not your friend either. Back when we were dating, my wife once told me that I was not only her boyfriend, but also her friend. I found that odd. Then she pointed out that her ex never had the potential to be her friend. They just didn't match. Since then, I have realized how important this is. Romance and attraction aren't always enough to sustain a relationship or marriage. The days they don't, the two people need to show up for each other as friends. It will always go a long way. I also know an example the other way around. A friend of mine still regularly visits his ex and very much cares for her well-being. He calls her the best friend he has. They just didn't want to go on as a couple anymore. The romantic spark had gone, and apparently, that was not enough to stay together, which is up to them. Story 6. It varies depending on the person, but I'll tell you about the most common mistakes people make. Treating their girlfriend or wife like a housekeeper and caretaker. Any toxic gender stereotypes about women, pretty much. Your goals are not aligning with your partner's. This one is nobody's fault. If you have your own set of goals, then you have your own set of goals. There is no compromise to any of the things you want the most out of life other than a spouse. If you don't want it, then you don't want it. The thing about romantic relationships is that you may have a connection now, but later you find out more information about your partner that will destroy that connection no matter what you do. It's nobody's fault because that's who they are inside. Like different goals and time frames or a no-compromise situation on what you want. One that doesn't involve cheating, I mean. That's what life is about. You don't know who they are until time passes and you find out later on. And then that destroys any romantic connection you have. And then you would realize that person isn't for you. Not your type like you thought they were. I haven't lost hope though. I'm 25 and I still have time to find someone who'll be with me for the rest of my life. Story 7. Not dating their partner after getting married or having kids. Not communicating. Not being on the same page when it comes to finances, household responsibilities, boundaries with external family, not prioritizing the partner. That last one is what killed my last relationship. She prioritizes friends over me all the time. Made me feel so unloved, honestly. She was going out with her friends and partying. I would join sometimes, but mostly I was learning coding with a friend and trying to make a business happen. In a bad turn of events, I lost my job and really had to get another. She not only kept partying, but also did it almost every day. All I wanted was for my girlfriend to be a friend first and foremost, and then a help, like I was when she had no job. For 3 months, After a month of her just partying and avoiding being with me, we broke up. She really didn't want to do the hard parts of the relationship. Relationships aren't dance challenges that you have to win. If you don't have the same rhythm, you'll end up looking for a different partner.
Want a break from the ads? Want a break from the ads?
Well, it's your lucky day, because this video is not sponsored by Rufus Reddit. Trust me, I get it. This is probably you trying to click on one of my videos in public. That is why I created Rufus Reddit, a 100% clean channel where you can enjoy my content in peace without worrying about what your search history will look like after. Oh, and did I mention that there's basically never any dolphin noises? So if you want to switch it up and listen to some lighter content, then click the link in the description and check out the channel. And if not, back to the stories. Story 8. Honestly, the little fights and arguments where both have to be right. Please learn from my pain. The love of my life died 4 years ago this October, and I've not even tried to date again. I think about it every moment of the day. At night, I lay awake haunted by every fight, every moment where I just had to be right, every time I got frustrated, the times I saw her cry and didn't just take her in my arms and say, "I love you, baby, and I'm sorry. I don't want to fight and ruin the time I will get with you because one day we'll be gone." I honestly can't even remember what half of the arguments were about. That is how much they didn't matter. But you better dang well believe I remember every time her beautiful blue eyes looked into mine with hurt and I still had to be right. That will forever be with me. Fights are going to happen, but just remember that one day your spouse might no longer be there. And will those fights have mattered? Spend every second with them, giving them all your love. Don't have regrets. Story 9. Thinking that it's one person's work. A successful relationship needs commitment and work from both parties. I find that as a woman, I'm usually carrying the emotional load and it's exhausting. Talking about feelings, initiating tough conversations, etc. won't do it anymore. There are a lot of men who seem to unconsciously view their female partner as their sole emotional outlet, which is a byproduct of not having other sufficiently close friendships where they can be vulnerable. Then the burden of all his stress, anxieties, trauma, etc. gets placed on his partner on top of everything else that often falls on women in a relationship. If the relationship ends, he also loses most or all of his support system. It's just a terrible dynamic. Story 10. Believing that having a child will fix problems. Great job. Now the 3 people are in a sucky situation and are now forever tied through a choice both people made instead of just working it out or separating. Both options would have been a lot messier and complicated. Not to mention that the kid is now stuck with something that's not their responsibility to fix and is now suffering through it. Compromise on big life decisions never ends well. Thinking a child will fix a rocky relationship is like trying to repair a leaky boat by adding more water. Now you've got 3 people in a boat that's sinking faster than the Titanic. Story 11. The biggest mistake in a relationship is to silently grow resentful of your partner. Feeling like they can't or don't do what one presumes should be expected or granted, obvious, grow a silent hatred towards another because of things one expects. The mistake is that even in close relationships, there is no telepathy. If one is kindly and thoroughly in love with another, this also means not letting down the loved one over small or big mistakes to prevent deep hatred from growing. People fall into relationships and expect that now they are one, and if another person misses opening the door for them, saying certain words at a friend's party or not excitedly noticing their new haircut, that it's a deliberate act of depreciation towards them. A bigger mistake is to start collecting these occurrences as if they were capital. It's not. There's no reading of minds. There are no things that were expected. If you want someone to act or do anything important for you, steer the course, be gentle and jolly, and apply a sense of humor. Don't hang on to your unfulfilled expectations of the obvious, because you will, sooner or later, for sure, sit on the pile of it, pissing off your close one and yourself. This is something I'm experiencing right now, and this is more than true. Sometimes I just catch myself expecting several things from my girlfriend, and when things don't turn out as I expected, I get kind of mad or sad. But we're both aware of that and have had some long talks about those situations. It seems like we're both swinging that way and trying to get better at communicating and saying stuff that annoys us immediately instead of just eating it up and exploding at some point. Having high expectations is like ordering a salad at a fast food restaurant and expecting it to taste like a gourmet meal. If you don't want to be surprised about dressing disappointments, you better hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Story 12. Not healing from their last relationship before beginning a new one. Healing takes time and effort. It's not easy, but fully worth it. Use that time to work on yourself, finding a new passion or a hobby that would make you happy. Eventually, you will find someone who clicks, but first, you need to click with yourself. I was seeing a guy who recently broke up from a 4-year relationship, and a week ago he told me he wanted distance from me as he started catching feelings for me. He said that he needs time to heal from his previous relationship as that left him in a very lost state, and with how he's currently feeling, his mind and heart push me away the second he starts to like me. He needs to work on himself and find his meaning in life before he can let new people into his life. He also stated that, with how he currently is, he can't offer what a healthy relationship would have to offer. It did hurt to hear that, but I do believe that it's better to give him space so he can heal than push him into something that he would regret. All in all, I believe a lot of people are starting a new relationship because they're so used to having someone next to them that they don't even realize that, in most cases, they can't even provide a high-quality relationship. But maybe this is just me gaslighting myself. Story 13. Building too much of a mythology around a relationship. I think falling in love always involves telling yourself a few little lies. However, that can become a whole fantasy of how you two are meant for each other that goes back to your magic meet cute, the amazing first date, the romantic XYZ. This makes the relationship a sort of golden handcuff that people feel they can never leave or alter. I fell madly in love with a woman, or at least with who I thought she was, and what I wanted her to be. As the relationship matured, it became clear that there were big differences in our philosophies, life viewpoints, and ideas about relationships. However, I was too wrapped up in my fantasy about what a perfect woman she was for me. I only wanted to see the parts of her that appealed to me, ignoring other parts of her that were very key to her existence. This eventually led to our downfall, and it wasn't pretty. It has taken me many, many years to come to any kind of peace of mind and acceptance, but after many years, I've come to accept our relationship for what it was. We had some good times together, and we both learned a lot about ourselves as well as what works and what doesn't work for us as partners in a relationship. Story 14. This applies to relationships and a lot of things in general. Reacting in a state of emotion. When people are in a heightened state of emotion, things seem extremely clear to them in the heat of the moment. They might interpret an event in one way, then spiral down, writing a story in their mind that fits whatever narrative they feel really strongly about. Often when the emotions have died down and people have had time to process their feelings, things appear very differently to them. They will regret their actions, but the damage has been done and some things can't be taken back. This is sadly what happened with my ex. They were still friends with their ex-boyfriend and we never saw eye to eye. I think partially it might have been jealousy, but I also think it was just kind of creepy in general and strongly lacking in empathy. Well, he was also depressed and admitted to my ex that one day he'd come very close to just disappearing from this world. A few days before that, he and I had some minor arguments about something. My ex took this to mean that I had caused him to nearly end his life, and he broke up with me over it. For years, I thought that this was true until I finally got the courage to talk to him about it, and he said he never even said something like that to my ex. Story 15. Neglecting to regularly assess the state of the relationship, especially if there have been a lot of issues and fighting. Just ask yourself if you're happy every now and then. If you're happy, then that's good. Take some action if you're not. I found it frighteningly easy to numb myself to horrible issues and bright red flags. Ignoring the tough questions and serious problems is not worth staying with a bad partner for years, especially if they are manipulative, thieving, psychotic, petty, and only seeking to drag you down so they feel better about being a dirtbag. Whoa. This lady ought to take a chill pill. That was too much info. Story 16. Arguing over mundane things. What I've learned in my 8.5-year-long relationship thus far is that some things, although annoying, are just not worth an argument over. Sure, if he's cheating or something as big as that, then yes, it'd end in an argument. But I'm not going to cause World War III because he came home a bit too drunk or because he didn't do something in the house he promised to do. Focus your energy on things that matter. I've thankfully had very few arguments with my boyfriend, but the ones we have had have always been over super mundane things. There have been times where we've argued, my boyfriend has stormed off and we're both angry at each other. Then I've gone through and been like, can we please not fall out over this extremely mundane thing? And then we realize how silly it is and we laugh it off. It just comes back to the importance of communication. If one of us didn't address how silly it was, then we would both remain angry at each other. Story 17. Working crazy hard to do things for your partner that you value, rather than the things they actually value. Have you cooked them a beautiful meal for when they get home tired? Awesome. What a great partner. But you left the rest of the house looking like a bomb site while you were in the kitchen. So the first thing she sees is a horrible mess and a pile of work for her? Oops. She likes good food. She adores a tidy house and not having to clean up at the end of a busy day. You've busted a gut and all she does is complain. She thinks you don't know her or really care about her, and you think she's ungrateful. Instead, you could have tidied up and ordered a takeaway. Totally different story. Just my thoughts. Story 18. Honestly, idealizing your partner. I see this happen so much. People get into relationships with someone, particularly when they're married, and that person is just the most amazing human possible on the planet. Maybe this is what falling in love is for some people, but it's never good to put someone on a pedestal. Often it's the same people who say their partner is the perfect match and the best man or woman ever who end up hating this person when they become an ex and have nothing nice to say about them. I always believe, when you put someone on a pedestal, you give them a reason to look down on you. My significant other and I try to treat each other as equals. Story 19. Making the other person the meaning of your life. You need to be your own person first before you can share yourself with another person. If the other person is important to your identity that you have none without them, then you've reached a seriously unhealthy level of codependency. You need to take a good hard look at who you are, what you want, and how your life is going in all other directions besides romantic. You need to be a well-rounded person, not a love story protagonist. A person cannot complete another. Two people must be complete in their own. Also, alone time in one's own life is a requirement in relationships. I don't want to be your whole world. That line is cringeworthy. Making the other person the meaning of your life is like ordering a pizza with only one topping. It's cheesy and lacks flavor. Relationships should be the pepperoni, not the whole pie. Story 20. Thinking that you are stuck in a relationship. Real relationships take work, but both parties need to be doing work on themselves and with each other. I've been in past relationships that I thought I had to stay in because I felt I had no other options. There are other options. You don't need to stay with someone if they hurt you in any way, betray your trust, break boundaries, cheat, etc. You do not need to stay if you are financially dependent. You do not need to stay just because you have kids, etc. Your happiness is so important. Someone will come along and see your true value. Do not stay in unhappy relationships. Story 21. Burning themselves out for the other person. All relationships are give and take, and it will rarely, if ever, be an even 50-50. Heck, sometimes it'll feel more like 80-20, and that's bound to happen every now and then. But when you're giving 70 days after days after days after days, you realize that's all it will be. And I'm not talking like the other person has cancer and needs help. That's just something you do for someone you love who has a deadly disease. No, I'm talking about ones that take every ounce of energy just to make them neutral, or else their problems become yours and you take the brunt of the fallout. I did this for 5 years and had a mental breakdown. The best way I can describe it is, don't set yourself on fire to make others warm. Story 22. Jealousy and mistrust leading to being overly controlling or suspicious. You don't own your partner. You can't stop them from seeing their friends or family. They're going to have to go places and talk to other humans as part of normal life. If you don't trust them, why are you with them? If they're going to cheat, all the suspicion and controlling behavior in the world aren't going to stop them. Relax. They picked you. You may not understand why, but they did. If you can't get that into your head, you can't be in a healthy relationship. Story 23. Protecting the other person's feelings. If you're not telling your significant other something to protect them because they'll feel bad or you'll feel bad for making them feel bad, it devolves. I know the phrase is overused, but it really is a slippery slope in a relationship. If they do something that you dislike, genuinely, tell them. Be honest with them and remind them if it's a habit until it stops or until you leave. Equally, or perhaps even more importantly, listen to them when they tell you the same thing. You can't be willing to dish it out unless you're willing to take it. Story 23. Thinking you can change the other person, or even just the attitude that they should change for you. If you pick a person, you need to pick them both for the good and the bad. Forcing someone to change never works. Encouragement can go a long way, though. I'm also going to say not liking who a person changes into. Change and growth are okay, but it's also okay if that change isn't for you. Story 24. Not being able to apologize. If someone tells you they're upset with you, you don't need to argue back. Don't argue about why something shouldn't have hurt someone, rather try to understand why it did. Story 25. Trying to win arguments. The goal should be to solve disagreements as a team, not come out as the victor. It's you and your partner versus the problem or argument, not you versus your partner. The need to be right all the time, I would say that is worse than winning. Both are forms of gaslighting. Quickly kills respect. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy. What golden nugget of information do you have? Story 4 is so unbelievable. See you in that video.